Welcome to the first episode of the Construction Collective, an ISG podcast. This platform is a space dedicated to meaningful conversations shaping the future of how the construction industry delivers. The podcast will bring together voices from across the built environment, engaging with prominent stakeholders, including consultants, clients, designers, contractors, and industry leaders who influence how our cities and infrastructure are imagined and delivered. Over the course of this year, our objective is simple but ambitious: to go beyond surface level discussions and create thoughtful dialogue around the challenges, innovations, and opportunities transforming the construction industry. We'll explore real experiences, diverse perspectives, and forward-looking ideas from design intent and client expectations to delivery, collaboration, sustainability, and long-term value. By connecting expertise from across these disciplines, the Construction Collective aims to spark new thinking and contribute to a more connected, informed, and resilient construction sector. Today's conversation focuses on the most defining chapter in ISG Middle East's 20-year business history, a period of disruption, decisive leadership, and transformation. In September 2024, ISG Global entered administration, bringing uncertainty across the wider group. For ISG Middle East, this could have marked a slowdown or even an end. Instead, it became a turning point. In January 2025, ISG Middle East emerged as an independent entity acquired by Andrew Craig. What followed was not just continuity, but a reset, a renewed ambition, and a clear evolution from a fit-out specialist into a full-scale construction provider. Today, we'll unpack that journey, the moments that mattered, the decisions made under pressure, the talent and capabilities built along the way, and what the future looks like now for ISG Middle East as an independent business within the region. I'm joined today by Andrew Craig, Chairman of ISG Middle East, Alia Saleh, CFO, Rob Letts, Business Development Director, Aidan Berry, Construction Director, and David Callow, Commercial Director, who all played key roles during this transition. Welcome.
Thank you, Ross.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. So I just want to go back now to the moment it all became very, very real. So Friday, September 20th, 2024, the news of ISG's global administration breaks publicly. Where were you when you heard the news? What was your immediate reaction? And what was the very first conversation you had about this and what it could mean for ISG Middle East?
Yeah, Friday the 20th of September has a bit more meaning for me than anything ISG related. It's basically my wedding day. So I was in Spain that day, getting ready, getting dressed in the morning. But I suppose I'll just take you back a little bit. Obviously, I had heard a bit more. It wasn't just that day. Thank God. There was rumours, and we had all probably heard bits and pieces before. But I'll take you back to kind of earlier in 2024. I had left ISG, went back home to Ireland for a couple of years, and then I arrived back out in March 2024, rejoined ISG Middle East, and at that time there was definite rumours of ISG Group having some challenges around cash. We had no clue of the scale of it at the time, I suppose. But then, in my kind of first 6 months back in ISG, we realised it was a problem, but the business was being sold. The group was being sold, and that we didn't really have anything to worry about here. So that was all good. Everything was going to plan, and we were kind of getting regular updates from our previous MD, Steve, who would have been in close contact with group board. And I suppose closer and closer to the September date, the sale, there was still a lot of talk about the sale, but then I suppose I went on leave a week or so before the 20th of September to go, because we were getting married in Spain. So I went home to Ireland and then from there back out. And maybe I had invited Steve to the wedding, and maybe a week before the wedding, Steve rang me to say that if the sale doesn't go through by the Wednesday of that week, it's not going to go through, and it'll mean administration for ISG Group, and we don't know yet what it means for ISG Middle East. So this was this was the Monday before the Friday. So that was that. I was in Spain at this stage. So from that point, I suppose I just kept in touch with Steve over the couple of days. Wednesday came about, the sale didn't go through, so the inevitable meant what was coming basically. So on the Thursday night, I think, or the 5 p.m. on the Thursday, we, LinkedIn was blowing up, and we kind of knew that that was it. The writing was on the wall for ISG Group. And I think here locally we had done some, gotten to meet lawyers, et cetera, to find out our stance here. And it luckily meant that we weren't going into administration immediately. However, we still were in a bit of trouble. So yeah, I suppose I had a lot going on that week. I suppose I rang Steve on the morning of the 20th, kind of just, I knew ISG was going into administration, but I just literally asked him the question, what does it mean for us here in the Middle East? And he said it looks like we won't go into administration. We have a lot to do. We probably have to sell the business, things like that. But as it stands, it's 50-50, but it won't go into administration immediately. And that little nugget was enough for me to say, right, I've got a job when I come back. Yes. And that did me. Then I just put it to the back of my head for the wedding, and all went well. Obviously didn't say a word to my wife, my wife-to-be of the morning, didn't bother telling her until the following Monday, until after the wedding. But yeah, so we got through. It was an unusual day for me from a lot of fronts, but yeah, got back here then to Dubai after the wedding, and it was a difficult period, like as you can imagine. It was I suppose the worst part of it was it was great that we still had a job and we still were operating, but the uncertainty of what lay ahead that's what I think kept us all. I think everyone, doesn't matter what position you were in the company, everyone was concerned and worried about how to deal with it, and what, none of us had done it before. So what do we need to do? And yeah, that was the biggest concern for everyone.
And I think over those few days which happened after, obviously we probably would have immediately gone into crisis mode, calling clients, making sure staff are settled. Although that felt like a crisis in the short term, where did we see the opportunity from then?
I think I always remember Steve rang one of our clients that we were currently on site with, and I think he said something really important to Steve, and he just said, because most people haven't been in this situation, right? You speak to a lot of senior people that we did, and they've never been in administration, so they can't really give you some critical advice as to what to do, because I think each part of it is completely different and complex. But he spoke to one of our clients, and the client literally said to him, just be as transparent as possible with people.
Yep. And
I think that we took that on board and just went straight at it, as opposed from running at it. We just ran into it. We were very much alone. I think we all need to be quite clear about that. We were kind of like pushed down a dinghy, and we were, kind of trawling our way through it for the best way we could, really. So I think from my point of view, it was just those little nuggets you used to get, the little bits of good information, like Aidan just said. We're not quite sure whether we're going into administration, so that's a positive thing, right? We're not quite there.
Yeah, and I do think that, like Aidan said, we were aware that ISG was potentially going to get sold, and we did know that if it didn't, there could potentially be outcomes that we might not necessarily be prepared for. As human beings, I guess you don't want to think about worst case scenario. You never want to think that your parent, your group, is going to file for administration. But it did. So I found out through WhatsApp on 19th of September through a UK colleague saying, we've been told not to come into work tomorrow. Something's happened. Wish you all the best.
Yeah. I woke up to a message from a recruiter. That's not even a joke.
I know.
It's wild.
That just shows how popular the ISG employees are, but because the talent that was there at ISG.
I think the biggest problem we had, Alia, if I remember rightly, is that a lot of people wanted like certainty and they wanted commitment.
We couldn't give it to them.
And we just couldn't give it. And it was
Yeah.
very difficult. We used to have these weekly. A really good thing, we had the weekly town hall to keep people as updated as possible. Was very careful with your wording because we can't guarantee anything. And I think it was difficult for staff, and I think they openly approached a lot of us independently to say, "What is this guaranteed? Is this guaranteed?" And as much as we probably knew deep down that we were in a better position than maybe we portrayed, the reality is we couldn't give it.
I was on my spreadsheets long before the 19th of September, planning multiple scenarios.
Yeah.
And it was at first shock when the administration news was delivered. Fear as well, like Aidan said, do I have a job? But very quickly, I think as leaders of the business, we moved into, we've got a business that needs to survive. We've got jobs that we need to deliver for our clients. We've got salaries that we need to pay. We've got supply chain who we owe it to make good on commitments. So, and who knows better about numbers than me from the balance sheet perspective.
Yeah.
We had more assets than we had liabilities. The only difficulty was understanding how long we had, how much of a runway we had. And we knew from the 19th of September, the clock was ticking. So rapidly doing evaluation of the business, rapidly speaking to our banks saying, this is what it is, transparency, exactly like you said, Rob. And then going out to market and saying, we're ready, ISG Middle East is ready to be sold independently. We've got local clients, local banks, local employees. Buy us because we're worth it.
Yeah, I think we were very lucky as well that we had a large order book. And I think secondly to that is, I would say majority of those clients were absolutely supportive of us when we went to them and said, this is the situation. And they were more taken back, I think, from us coming straight at them with it, as opposed to, beating around the bush, I suppose. So I think it was received really well from that point of view. We were very fortunate to have the clients that we had at that particular time.
And I think that's the opportunity. Sorry, Aidan, but that's the opportunity.
Yeah.
Is being able to have those open and honest conversations with our clients, subcontractors, employees. I think that's when we were the most vulnerable, but actually that was an opportunity for us to show our real raw selves and how we present in a situation that is essentially crisis. But I hope we didn't make it seem like it was crisis mode. We were swans, but paddling really, really, really fast.
We had 100 people to look after.
We had 100 people to look after.
I think the thing that was really annoying was that, I'm not saying we were cast out as literally as I said it, but...
No, we were.
Yeah, okay.
We were.
But we had 100 people that were essentially reliant on us. And, it's back to the COVID days, right, when people just they just needed that reassurance, not guarantees, but reassurance of where we were. The weekly town updates, town hall updates were so important to people that they knew as much as we did as live as it was. So...
Yeah, and I think from my perspective, I was one of those 100. To be so informed over those few months it meant a lot, not only to me but to everybody within the business. That it was crystal clear what the steps were in order to survive as a business. And obviously, we went through a period of 4 months up until the acquisition by Andrew, and I'm going to bring you in here now, Andrew. When did you first learn about ISG? And what was your thoughts about us as a business, and then what happened over that 4-month period from group going into administration and then you acquiring the business?
Well, I mean, I hadn't actually heard. I mean, my main business is development, so residential. So I hadn't really had many dealings with ISG in the UK. I didn't know too much about ISG. I came to Dubai in essence, promised my wife that I wouldn't be buying any businesses, that I would come here, we would buy some property, we'd flip it, and we would just have a nice chilled existence for a little bit. Because we'd bought and sold lots of businesses and it was ups and downs, and it was time to have a bit of relaxation. That didn't quite happen. I came to Dubai, and again, Dubai is a great place for community and networking. And I had met some friends over a beer, and we're talking about I was about to buy a portfolio of villas to renovate and flip them on, and then he had a conversation about, have you heard about ISG? And I was like, who's ISG? What do they do? And he's like, well, they're a big main tier 1 contractor, and the UK arm just went into administration. And they said, I know Rob.
He literally called me.
Yeah, they said, I know Rob at ISG. They're looking for a buyer. Are you interested? And I'm like, yeah, as you know, as an entrepreneur, you're always like, there's always opportunity. At first I thought, no, probably too much, you know. I go back home and who my wife were currently on holiday at the time. My wife and my daughter were on holiday. I can go back to my wife and say, right, I've just decided to buy a business, even though I said I wouldn't. But anyway, I said, look, okay, well, let's have a chat. So I think we reached out to Rob, and then I ended up having I think that evening or the next night, I had a conversation with Steve Ramsden, just to really understand the situation a bit more. And he kind of broke it down where the business was at, you know, looking, and for me, obviously, it all comes down to numbers at the beginning. Any deal you assess and identifying the position of the business, and having a bit of a high-level review of it within like a week or so, and I got some numbers, and yeah, I looked at it pretty quickly and thought there's clearly an opportunity here from an investor perspective. So we looked at the deal, and I thought, right, there's opportunity. So there's opportunity, let's go into the DD and give it a go. The issue was normally I do these deals in partnership with some other partners, and that brings another level of due diligence to the table because you've now got 10 lawyers in the room rather than 3 or 4. So we started looking at it. We were back and forth a few weeks, and especially the fact I hadn't bought anything yet in the UAE, so I didn't know the legislation, the laws here. But I think more and more I got to come into the business, got to meet the staff and the team, spent a good bit of time with Steve. Got to understand that it was a really good model, and as you say, you know, from a balance sheet perspective, the business had done really well over the time it'd been here, and nearly 20 years, hadn't had any issues with bonds at that time, had a positive balance sheet, positive cash flow, all these things go in your favour when you're buying. Normally in a business is in administration, you're buying more of a distressed asset, so you're looking, it's not a great setup. But I think what you guys had done, and Alia and the finance team, to create a very easy model for my guys that were reviewing it to understand was very important. And so normally these deals would take anywhere between 6 to 8 months, in terms of complexity of the deal. And we had a countdown, we had to get the deal done by Christmas. So when we made the decision, right, we're going to go for it, I had to sit my wife down and say, okay, I'm just about to buy a business. I know I didn't. So, but it's a good one, good opportunity. And then, yeah, we literally went 2-3 months of due diligence. And again, it was probably one of the easier processes I had to do, and that was down to you guys in terms of the data was available and it was clear cut. It was very transparent, and I then learned pretty quickly that you got to speak frankly value, so that's why it's transparent. Yeah, and then by the end of the year, it was done. I think for me, there was a bit of pressure on me, mainly because I realised I wanted the deal done before Christmas. I wanted everyone in the company to be comfortable that they could enjoy the Christmas period knowing that they've got a job come January. And when you buy a business that's in administration, you have no guarantees. If I buy a business now that's not administration, there's warranties and guarantees that come. So that's another big thing. The lawyers say, oh, you can't do that. So we had to take a risk, and yeah, it's been a very good one.
Thank you. And then what immediately after the acquisition, what do we think? So, long-standing ISG employees, what do we think changed immediately after that acquisition, or in the months that followed?
I think like a new direction was coming in, because obviously Andrew's way of thinking and aspirations, unbeknown to us, was to go in a different direction. I think it was great being group. We had the warranties and the guarantees because we were part of a bigger organisation. But I think a lot of the people that we employ, I think, have got a little bit more about them than doing what we just did consistently. And I think there was a few opportunities prior to Andrew that really got to us a little bit that we weren't allowed to pursue because of group. And I think that Andrew came in and gave us a bit more of a longer rope, really, in terms of to go and have a look at it at least. Bring the detail back, and we'll go into a bit more detail. But I think he basically gave us a clear path to open our direction, and I think that's one of the successes that we've had over the last year.
Yeah, and then what do we feel like has stayed the same by design? Obviously, over a period of change and uncertainty, it's naturally going to worry people. but what stayed the same since?
I think it would be our values. As sometimes people would just go, oh, God, she's talking about values. But I really do think that most of our employees abide by them. We continue to speak frankly. We continue to never stop learning in terms. There we go. He's turning his mug as well. We've got our branding on point. But yeah, I do think that that's one thing that we continue to remain quite confident about, and we insist upon, is trying to keep that open lines of communication across the board. Nobody is inaccessible. So that hasn't changed. But it's interesting that you say that it doesn't feel like it changed too much other than the overall direction. But behind the scene, you had processes changing, systems changing. We didn't have a safety blanket. Yeah. Working with ISG's group, there are a lot of things that you don't worry about when it comes to legal, when it comes to insurances, when it comes to bonds, when it comes to cash flows, when it comes to...
They also threatened to turn our IT off as well, didn't they?
And they did. No, they did.
Or put us
pay up.
Yeah, exactly.
Or else. Yeah. But those were the administrators. So is the fact that a lot of people didn't quite feel that transition, I think, is also to a testament of our team, where we changed, but we changed rapidly. Everyone just got on with what they were supposed to get on with. And you could only do that by communicating openly.
I think it's the people, like the biggest, the main thing that we held on to, the thing that we desperately wanted to hold on to in the early days was the staff.
Yes.
Because obviously we are literally nothing without the staff.
Correct.
We are just a management contractor. So that was our primary goal in the initial phases, is stabilise, keep everyone there, keep the team together for if we do make it through, we've got something to build on, you know. And we did. We kept the team there. And that was really lucky that we had jobs, we had live projects to keep people busy. You know, we were really lucky with that side of things at the time. But that for me is the biggest thing that we retained. It's the staff, most of the staff, and we have a lot of long-serving employees, which then, and the culture. You know, we've got the people there, and then it was an easy base for us to go again. You know.
I think that for me was actually quite a big deciding factor. Out with the financials, actually the people and the culture were a big thing, because I'd seen there's a great platform there, but again, buying and inheriting and great IP is good and assets are good, but the people was a big thing. I think I've said that a few times at events, that having, you know, come in and spend some time with the people made a big difference, because I could see the talent we had. And that shouldn't have went to waste. You know, the talent, we can harness that talent, and we have this year, and that's allowed us to grow.
ISG is widely known as a fit-out excellence provider within the region. But in the past 12, 14 months, we've triggered the decision to evolve into a full-scale construction provider. How did that strategic vision begin, and what took shape during this transition?
Going back to what I said earlier, I think that Andrew kind of allowed us to open our wings a little bit and look for different opportunity that we weren't necessarily involved in. That was one reason. I think the other reason, we had some clients that were very multidisciplined in terms of what they were doing. And they gave us the opportunity to kind of pivot into different markets. And then we also went looking for other stuff. So we approached a lot of people, explained the new direction, and then opportunity generally comes around. And I think that we had 3 opportunities that were going to be very crucial to us last year, in around April, May, June time, and we secured all 3 of them. They naturally took us into a different direction, and then the next part of that will be to capitalise on that to continue on the direction that we're going in. But I think it's a magnitude of things. It's people wanting to talk to us about other opportunities. It's going back to people that used to come to us and ask us if we'd do something, and we'd always say no. You know, when we've reached out to them, they've come to us, and I suppose organically it's just grown the way we wanted it to grow. And I think we'll now get to a position where we understand our direction more, and then we'll probably really enclose that about what we want to do, where we want to go. Because I mean, Andrew's not, you know, he's given us our wings to fly, but not everywhere. So we've definitely got a direction that we're going in, and that will change, because I think opportunity will come around. And the way that Andrew works is that, you know, we're more than happy to look at opportunity, but it's got to be right for both parties. But that was a real starting block for us.
And I think just on that, as Rob said, like, whether it was very clearly a strategy, or some of it was opportunity, or maybe it was a mixture of both. You know, we probably in the last couple of years anyway, we had started looking at more complex projects, larger scale, moving away from strictly fit out, you know, and that just kind of lent itself to putting us in a position to get the opportunity. Correct. But then I think probably the bit Rob mentioned is where we could go with that was probably limited by groups' appetite to take on risk, you know, and things like the G+1 license is a massive one. You know, we were years trying to get that, and we didn't, but within probably a month of Andrew coming on board, we went back to him and said, here's a proposal, we want to do G+1. He showed him the numbers, how much it was going to cost, what would the return be. He said, okay, within 24 hours. And then, I don't know, 2 months later, we had a G+1 license. So again, it's just opportunity.
But the weird one was, wasn't it, when Andrew actually took the company over, we were currently on site with a big job.
Yeah.
And this was a bit of a mistake from our point of view, really, that we did probably a year's worth of work on the job and then realised how much of a larger job it was to what we usually did.
Yeah.
And then we suddenly started taking people to site to show them what we're doing. And pretty much 90% of people went, oh, we weren't quite sure you were doing this type of work. And then that opened another door.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
for
exactly.
So we kind of shot ourselves in the foot. Then pulled it back around. And I think that we were doing a lot more complex work than people thought. So getting them to come and see it, the setup that we've got, the way we work, was absolutely vital for definitely winning 2 jobs. Yeah. So, you know, that was probably a bit of an own goal, but then we saved.